we go. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Day 32 after a little bit of a quieter week last week. 3 days left in this little series. And I've carried this conversation for a few days now, and it's it's time to have it. I want to speak to a specific person today. Not the person who's been doing the work, making the moves, or been finding their own hall moments and naming their invisible contracts and building their disciplines and practices. I want to speak to the one who's been watching, who hasn't started yet. The person that comes back every morning. They find something valuable here, but they're standing at the threshold. They can see the door. They might even know what's on the other side, but they've not taken the step through it. Now, let me say this as plainly and as non-mystically as I can. I see you. And this short, tiny message is for you. Let me guess at what's keeping you at the threshold. Not because I don't, but I don't know your specific life. But I do know the shape of this particular hesitation. And I don't want to get into hesitation right now because there's two frames. One of them is not positive. How do I know it? Because I've lived it. I've sat across from it in hundreds of coaching rooms. It might be the cost. The real specific cost of beginning the work. Not the financial cost, the relational cost, the identity cost, the cost that comes from beginning to see the invisible contracts and the inherited stories and the false self-architecture for what they truly are. Because once you see it, you're responsible for it. Once you know it, the comfortable version of not knowing is gone. That's a real cost. And I believe it's worth naming. That's where some of you are. For others, it may be the timing. It's just, it's not a good season. There's just so much going on. There's so many things that need to be handled. Let me get other stuff together. That's where a lot of people are. See, when the complexity calms down and the circumstances align and the stars are there, when the timing is better, then you'll get started. Let me tell you something right now. That timing will not arrive. I want you to hear that clearly and with love. The complexity does not clear up on its own to create space for transformation. The transformation has to happen in the middle of the chaos. That is where it always happens, and that is only where it's going to happen. Or it might be the deepest thing. It's not timing or cost. Maybe it's the fear that what you find when you actually look is going to be worse than what you're managing with. The fear that the real self, when excavated, won't be worth the excavation. That the authentic interior is something to be afraid of rather than to be discovered. So let me speak to that one. Let me tell you, I want to tell you from experience what happens when people do this work. What they actually find when they stop performing the version when they start performing the version of themselves and excavate. Why is that word so frustrating today? Toward the real thing. I need more coffee. They find more than they had, not less. There's never less, guys. Every single person, over 1,000 now in 2 years that I've watched genuinely do this work. Everyone who has sat with the honesty long enough for it to actually land, who's been through the grief and the courage and the clarity and has the clean, has found a self that was more interesting, more capable, more worthy of love and belonging and genuine contribution than the version that they were performing. And that's not true because the actual self just shows up as this perfect thing. It's not perfect. It's real. And real, that small little word was the word that launched out of my brain over 3 years ago. I just want to be real. Real is always more valuable than constructed. The problem is that people tell you how to be real, and it's just another fake performance of real. Real is always more interesting than performed, and real is always more capable of genuine connection than managed. There is the fear that the real self is something to be afraid of, that it's insufficient. I still feel these things today, guys. That the real self is insufficient, that the real self is unlovable, that it will not survive contact with the world, with reality. That's why one of the primary pillars of my systems, of my philosophy, of my psychology, is that reality aligns freedom, aligns liberation. The fear is itself an artifact of the false self. It is the false self's primary defense mechanism. It says, hey, don't look, because what you'll find will be worse than what you're doing and performing. That is a lie. It is not true. In my experience, the people who do this work, without exception, what they find is gloriously better. And here's something that I believe about the person who's been watching this series every morning and hasn't started yet. Your hall moment is already present. It may not have fully surfaced, or it may not have the right lexicon or language, but the reason you keep coming back is that something in you is receiving a transmission. Something in you is recognizing what's being said in the language of something that's already true in your inner space. The door is already there. You may have been standing in front of it for a while. You may have been there longer than you realize. The question is not whether the door is real. The question is whether you're going to walk through it. And I want to say this as plainly as I know how to say it. You are ready. Not ready in the sense of having everything figured out. Not in the sense of knowing what you'll find. Ready in the sense of having enough awareness to take the first step. You already have enough awareness. And that's why you're here. That's why you come back to listen to this guy speak. The first step is small. Tell yourself the truth about one thing. One thing you've been managing rather than seeing clearly. One invisible contract that you can name. One place where the signal's been speaking and you've been explaining it away. Just that one thing. Just that one step. That's all that it takes. The hall moment of getting started, of beginning. Honesty aligns liberation's language. That moment is the moment you stop waiting to be ready and just start. The honesty is, I'm standing in front of a door I can already see, and staying here is no longer neutral. It is a choice, and the choice I'm making by staying is to remain in a life that I already know is not me, nor mine. When that honesty lands, something aligns. I know you're tired of, I've said that 32 times now. It's not excitement, really, though sometimes. Often it's just clarity. Powerful thing. The recognition that the step is available, that it's small, that the cost of not taking the step is greater than the cost of taking it. And the language that forms is the language of taking responsibility for its own liberation. Of a person choosing, perhaps for the very first time, to be the sovereign author rather than the subject of their own story. So one thing today, right now, today, name the thing you already know, the thing you've been managing and explaining, qualifying, looking away from, the one that has been transmitting. You don't have to do anything with it today beyond just, hey, there it is. This is what it is. Just name it in your own interior, your own inner space, in your own language, honestly. Because the naming is the first step, and the first step is the only step that is required of you right now. So that's day 32 right here. We've done it. 3 days. We're in the final sprint. Tomorrow, the amplified life painted as fully as I know how to paint it. Not the concept, the portrait. what it looks like from the inside to be genuinely, completely alive, and a life that belongs to you and that you are sovereign over, that is yours. So tomorrow, hold on. That's where you're headed. So be well, and I'll see you in the morning.